Hey guys, welcome to the As the Leader Grows podcast. I am your host, Ken Joslin. And as always, we've got a phenomenal interview coming up with you guys today. Listen, we are super passionate about helping leaders build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. And anytime my phone rings and it's Dave Meltzer and he's got someone I need to be connected with, my ears perk up every single time. And so I spent some time with this guest today, Brent Knopf, leadership, sales mindset expert, 20 years of sales management, keynote speaker, performance coach, absolutely crushing it, helping businesses strategize, helping them understand mindset and how important that is in leadership and sales. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together. Help me welcome my guy, Brent Knopf. What's up, dude?
Hey, I appreciate the intro, Ken. That was fantastic. And, my humility, it always kind of gets me when I hear those, that kind of effusive praise, but I appreciate it and love to be here. I've got a lot of great things to say about you as well. You're doing a tremendous job, with all the things. And, I really am very appreciative to be here today.
No, I appreciate you too, dude. Again, when Dave calls, and I was telling you earlier, I was just on another call this morning from somebody that Dave connected me with. When Dave calls and says, dude, I got somebody you need to meet, I always know they're going to be very high quality people, and super excited about having a conversation. Take a minute or two, Brett, and let our audience know where you're from, what you've got going on. Dude, tell me what you're passionate about right now.
Sure. So I grew up in New Jersey, Paramus, spent, the majority of my adult life in Manhattan until started having kids, or more accurately, my wife started having kids a few years back, moved out to the suburbs of Long Island, bought a house out here. And it's been fantastic. Fatherhood is something that is a real game changer. I've always been in sales, management, leadership positions in the entirety of my career. So getting the opportunity to, really have that vested interest in my kids growing and developing and becoming leaders of themselves, and ideally, in helping other people learn, grow, and develop is something that I take very seriously and I enjoy a lot. So like I mentioned, I spent 20 years in leadership and sales management roles, industry leading organizations in hospitality, in health and wellness, most recently at Equinox for about 13 years. And, I realized during the pandemic that, all the skills that I've developed over my time are highly transferable to coaching, consulting, really helping people and organizations maximize their potential. I know that's a very generic and buzzy word type of thing to say, but to answer your question, my mission and what I'm passionate about is really putting the processes, the procedures, the culture in place for organizations so that they can attract and retain talented people because they're actually investing in them from a personal development standpoint, in addition to professional skill development. So I want to make sure they're doing that, or the people in these work environments where they're just not happy, those toxic work environments, have the skills and confidence to go out and create those on their own, or identify the people that are already doing it. So
So what's the number one thing you would say to our audience today? You've got a ton of business owners, entrepreneurs, very entrepreneur community. What would you say to some of those guys? Because some of the buzzwords you said, because you and I we're real like-minded, and we have really the same DNA when it comes to processes and SOPs and culture and those. And I tell people all the time, like, that's not the sexy stuff. It's not sexy. But dude, if you want to grow and be healthy and take care of people, if you're an organization or an entrepreneur that wants something for your employees and not just from them, you really can build something special. Talk about what are some of the biggest things that you see in businesses you go in today around that concept and idea of processes, SOPs, being able to scale.
You said it. It's not sexy. Let's not mince words on that front. But I believe it was Jim Rohn that talks about being elite in the fundamentals, and that puts you in that upper echelon of performers. And not just performers from a business metric or financial standpoint, but performers as far as happiness and, philanthropically able to give as much as possible. There's a lot there. So, what I see, and I've been really kind of blown away as I've gone into various businesses, because I've worked with, solopreneurs up to, $1 billion a year revenue type of companies. And there seems to be a real lack of clearly defined processes and procedures in a lot of cases, which leads to a lot of ambiguity amongst the team members. If there's not a clearly defined way of doing things, so from recruiting and interviewing and hiring all the way through onboarding and performance reviews and merit increases and sales processes. On my LinkedIn, I have it pretty clearly laid out here. It's like, what is your recruiting process, and is it clearly documented? What is your hiring process, and is it clearly documented? Because even the people that can kind of regurgitate it somewhat, when you ask them if it's clearly documented, the answer, 9 times out of 10 is no. So in order to scale and grow and build and make yourself replicatable as a business leader, you need to have everything clearly documented. So the next person in line can just take that and apply it. The next person in line can take it and apply it. That's how you create this pipeline of future leaders to be able to delegate to, so you're not always having to be necessarily.
That organization is huge. It's like you said, and I tell people all the time, listen, this ain't sexy what we're going to talk about, but I promised you, if you do this every single day and you get this down and you get this organization and these SOPs into your culture, in your business, you're going to wake up one day and be like, dude, how do we grow this fast? I love what John Maxwell says. He says, you don't reproduce what you know, you reproduce who you are. Okay. And if you're not setting your business up in the ability to reproduce, and you just said it just a minute ago, you just duplicate yourself. You just continue to duplicate. And when you do that, you keep growing and growing and growing. And let me ask you this question. What percentages of the businesses would you say that you work with really have, and I mean really, I'm not talking about it's a core value that hangs on the wall that nobody pays attention to except for the quarterly meeting or the yearly meeting, but what percentage of businesses would you say authentically have, passionately have a growth mindset?
It's small. I would say no more than 5%, and even that might be a stretch. Because, the core value thing, I'd say 40% probably have core values, but who's actually bringing that up regularly? Who's actually embodying that on a day-to-day basis? Who's looking at everything they do through the lens of your core values? It's core values for a reason. The answer is very, very few. And again, I used the word ambiguity earlier. When there's ambiguity in why people should be putting their best foot forward in an organization, how is it going to help that individual? How's it going to help the person next to them? How's it going to help the company as a whole? How's it going to help their leadership team? How's it going to help the people that they serve? Without that clarity and alignment, people are going to just naturally be going in different directions. I aim to make sure that we get everyone pulling in the same direction, where it creates wins all around for all parties, internally and externally. And when you've got, clearly defined core values and you're discussing these things regularly and asking yourself in the decision-making process, does this align with our core values and why? And now there can be some really great discussions that happen where on paper it may seem like this is the right move, but upon closer inspection with the group dynamic in play, we make the determination, hey, maybe not. That doesn't really align with who we are and what we're about.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I talk about all the time when I teach on core values is, we use in my organization, I use core values from the first interview through the interview process. We let them know, listen, we promote and we exit people off our team filtered through our 5 core values: passion, focus, intentionality, teachability, and flexibility. when we have to have a conversation or we have a conversation, when we reward somebody openly in public, it's always filtered through one of those core values. And if we have to exit somebody or have a hard conversation one-on-one, it's always filtered through one of those core values. And when you have those conversations through core values, this is the power of core values. Because, a lot of people who are, let's say, and I wouldn't say people pleasers, but everybody wants everybody to like them. Like they just do. We're humans. And if you don't, something's wrong with you. But even in an organization, when you use those core values to filter job performance and life and those kind of things through, it removes the, hey, I don't know if they're going to like me or if they're not going to like me or whatever that looks like. It removes all of that. And it really gets you focused on and helps you filter out the wrong people that are in your organization. But people don't use them. Talk about what you do with your clients to help them understand the importance of what core values look like and making them literally something they use day to day.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with you. The inception point is critically important because how many of you have been in there and you bring on a hire, you feel good about them, you spend all this time onboarding, developing, and then you find out that they actually aren't in alignment with your core values. So you wasted a lot of time, money, resources on the wrong person, when if this is clearly defined from the outset. So what I do with my clients is I make sure that through the lens of their core values and also through the lens of identifying what their top performers as far as metric-based performance as well as cultural-based performance are doing and exhibiting. Now you can tailor your recruitment process. You can tailor your interview questions to make that determination of, is this person the right fit? And you're going to have a much easier time building around those people and building, with those folks foundationally than you would trying to fit the square peg in the round hole. I also like to make sure that those top performers in culture and metric-based performance have input into who's coming onto the team. You want them to, make sure that they sign off on the teammates that they're going to have to work with over the next X amount of time. And then it's, again, you've got like-minded people, you've got, very clearly defined characteristics and values. So there's a lot less room for, people to just kind of veer off on in a direction that's out of alignment.
There's a reason Michael Jordan had a say. There's a reason Kobe had a say. There's a reason Tom Brady has a say. There's a reason LeBron, love him, hate him. I'm like, There's a reason LeBron has a say. There's a reason Steph Curry has a say on who comes and plays for Golden State, because they want to bring in teammates that they know they gel with. It's so funny. I was watching the Sports Center when I was cooking my omelet just a while ago, because I'm on day 8 of keto, by the way. Nice. And I was watching them talk about the fiasco in Brooklyn with KD and Kyrie and all the, it's like, and they're like, they're talking about trading him, and Stephen A is like, dude, I wouldn't trade him. I'm like, dude, we just paid you X amount of years staying here until we win. Like, they had one playoff win and that's it. And they gave, a lot of money between 2 or 3 players, between him and Kyrie and
Harden
and Fear the Beard. Yeah. James Harden. Yeah. They put a lot of money in those guys. But when you look at it, and I'm a hooper, when I look at it chemistry wise, I'm like, that ain't gonna work. Like, it's just not, you knew it wasn't. It's like LA with Anthony Davis and Russell Westbrook with LeBron. Like, that probably ain't gonna work.
No.
Like, how important is it? Or let me ask you this. Why is it difficult for business owners or entrepreneurs to take feedback from teammates when they're looking to add other teammates and people on the team?
I think it's ego. I really believe ego gets in the way a lot of times. I also believe that, leaders weren't necessarily trained in leadership in a lot of cases. They get to these leadership positions because of metric-based performance rather than, a lot of the soft skills of emotional intelligence and empathy and whatnot, that is going to help them be much more relatable and able to identify the whys, the emotional triggers for their employees that are going to help them be more intrinsically motivated to perform rather than having to, hit them with the cattle prod to get them to
Right.
perform. So
Right.
I think it's a combination of either or both ego and
Yeah.
just a lack of information and coaching and teaching on why that would be important and how it would benefit all parties involved. Again, I keep
Yeah.
coming back to that. The wins all around. It's not a zero
Yeah.
sum game. As an organization, if you can do that, you're going to attract and retain talent, and you're not going to have so much of that churn and burn type of thing.
You said something just a minute ago about the cattle prod. One of the things I think is super important if you're listening today, this podcast, is a saying I used to say all the time that I got from actually one of my coaches and mentors, Sean Lovejoy. He said, listen, we don't push cars, we only steer them.
Yes.
We don't push cars, we only steer them. Listen, if I got to push you, you're on the wrong team. Now you can come in and give me a thoroughbred. I can help. I can get on you with some reins and I can get you in the right direction. But I can't put that, if you will, as we used to say in Pontiac, I can't put that dog in you. If you don't have some drive and you don't have that innate desire and passion to do what it is you're doing, it's hard to put that in somebody. What do you think is the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle, Brett? You've been, in this 20 years working with a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs, which is pretty much our community that listen to this podcast. We got thousands of people that listen. What would you say what's the biggest hurdle for entrepreneurs and business owners to get from the level that they are to where they want to go?
Yeah. Twofold, and they actually go hand in hand. And coming from the health and wellness industry, it's interesting how transferable it is to business, but a lack of clearly defined vision of what success looks like. What are those markers? What are those goals? What are, just really, really well thought out over a period of time? What is it that constitutes success? Again, metric wise, but also culturally, and making sure that those things are in place. And, in the absence of that, which, funnels into the second point, it's hard to create the strategic plans that funnel directly into those outcomes and those goals if those outcomes and goals aren't clearly defined. So, we use these words, structure and SOPs and whatnot, in order to create those clearly defined vision, and then you can really utilize your time wisely in the present. I think it's Ed Milet actually talks about that. It's like the highest achieving business owners and organizations and people that I know, they have a very clearly defined vision of the future, and they use their time wisely in the present. So in order to use your time wisely in the present, you need to have those strategic plans in place that drive you linearly, block out the distractions, the noise, dial in. And, when you do that, now you're in the driver's seat and you're going to be much more linear in your goal achievement and much more linear in scaling your business.
I love that, man. So you've been, again, 20 years, and then, as we're coming out of COVID, fatherhood, all those kind of things, just made this desire to, I'm going to quit doing the corporate thing. I want to do my own thing. Talk about that. Talk about that drive. What did that take in you to be able to take that step and take that risk?
Yeah, it's, during that period, it was a real awakening for me as well. I had been really loving what I was doing professionally. I didn't have much of a wandering eye. I had gone the entrepreneurial route previously. I'd started one of the country's first search engine marketing firms as a Google partner back in 2005, 2006. So I had that in me previously, but again, I was loving what I was doing. That being said, my father-in-law died unexpectedly right before COVID. Have two kids now under the age of 16 months. Decided to move in with my mother-in-law to help her out and her help us out. And for the first time in my life, or not first time in my life, first time in a long time, I felt like I lost control of things. COVID happens shortly thereafter.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, I've got my family. I feel out of control. What is the best way for me to regain control? And step number one was admitting that I had lost control. Step number two was start investing in coaches and mentors and resources to help me, rediscover myself, redefine what it is that I wanted to do. So, I went with one of the consultants with Proctor Gallagher Institute, one by the name of Millie Ristich, and she helped me really identify those goals that I had for myself, and the big, hairy, audacious goals, not just the smart
BAs,
goals.
Baby. Yes.
And from there, I was then able to start putting together the strategic pieces. But again, it kind of came at a low point, and just making a decision that I would never leave my family's or my own well-being in anyone else's hands again, because my safe, fun, secure job was not so safe and secure as it turns out. So I'd rather bet on myself and risk my family's well-being on myself than leave it in anyone else's hands. And by myself, I got a great team around me. I got Dave Meltzer as my business coach. I'm writing my first book that should be published in mid to late September. So I've got a book writing coach. I've got a cognitive behavioral therapist. I put a team around me. So even as an entrepreneur, I'm not flying solo. And that's an important lesson as well. And, getting that ego pushed away and knowing, even though my company is called Knopf Knows Solutions, I don't have all the solutions. So I make sure I surround myself with very smart, driven people.
It's huge. The relationship component is the number one thing in growth in any area. I talk about core 5 all the time: faith, health, relationships, business, and finances. And it is really, really huge to be able to have the right relationships because they bring things in perspective. Sean, my coach and mentor for 13 years, has always talked about, I have a 10,000 foot view of what's going on in your life. Like, they see things down the road that we don't see. We're able to pick the phone up and shoot. I did with Randy Garn this morning. I was on the phone with Randy. Hey, here's the thing I've got in my business. Boom, boom, boom. What are your thoughts? Call was like 7 minutes long. Boom. Gave me some clarity. I knew I was doing the thing I was supposed to, because what I was doing was exactly what he advised. And I went, got it, done. Appreciate you, bro. Love you. Off the phone and ready to roll. My buddy Ivan Ann says, I hear him say this all the time: your ego is not your amigo. Why do you your ego is not your amigo? Now you can say, I heard my friend Ken Joslin say, my ego is not my amigo.
You're going to take that one and run with it.
Well, I know. What's the issue with ego? Where do you think that comes from in entrepreneurs? And how much do you think that is a roadblock for them in growth in their business?
Yeah, I think it comes from that desire to be in control and feel like I have all the answers. If I'm the leader, then I should have all the answers. And I use that word "should." It's a dangerous word to employ on a regular basis. And I don't. In some cases, it's willfully. In some cases, it's just, they haven't necessarily been exposed to the world that, you and I and plenty others have of personal development. When you really invest in yourself and you take that deep dive and go down the rabbit hole day after day after day with yourself, with other people helping you look at yourself objectively so that you can make the necessary analysis and changes and adjustments moving forward. Again, you come to find out that you could have all the ego you want, but that's not doing you any good. That's not going to help you. So it becomes a real obstacle for people. And again, I'll reference Meltzer. He actually incentivizes his team members financially based off of how frequently they ask for help, which I think is such a cool concept. Ask for help. Even though you are an entrepreneur, even though you are doing great things, and you've got this vision and you're building something special, that doesn't preclude you from having other people who have already done it at a high level, and just seeking out their feedback, seeking out their help. And
I tell you,
you're good to go.
It's funny because we don't know what we don't know, but then a lot of us are afraid. And sometimes I think that the ego part, what it does is it keeps us from being self-aware. It keeps us from not, I told a mentor of mine one time, we went to a very high-end dinner with a couple guys that were worth several $100 million and one billionaire. And I told him, I said, listen, I don't ever want to be the guy that don't know what he don't know. So if I'm in the room and there's something, pull me aside and speak into my life. Like I'm giving you permission to be able to do that. And it really is a self-awareness and I think a humility where you walk into something. Cause I know what you said just a minute ago, Brett Knopf solutions, but I don't have all the solutions. I tell people all the time, I may not have all the solutions, but I know somebody that does.
Correct.
I guarantee you, I've got a relationship. I was on the phone with the other guy that Dave connected me with this morning, and he's wanting to look at syndications, real estate syndications, raising money. I connected him with a 24-year-old kid in my mastermind who's a multimillionaire and already has 37 million in properties and just put another $15 million piece of property under contract. And he's doing real estate syndications pretty much like Grant does. I'm like, here, go call a boss. Text him on the phone right when you hopped on today. That's what I was doing. So, dude, man, thank you so much for your time today. What's the best way for our audience to be able to connect with you, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, you can text me or call me directly at 551-404-4060. Or you can email me, brett@knopfknowssolutions.com. And social media at knopfknows on Instagram, LinkedIn, my name, Facebook.
Spell that for everybody so they don't miss the Knopf.
Yeah, it's a lot of wasteful letters we talked about.
Yeah.
It's KNOPF, knows, KNOWS.
Knopf knows, guys. Go check my guy Brett out. Listen, if you're a business owner looking for culture, looking for systems, SOPs, processes that you need to be able to scale, check my dude out. Brett, man, it's been a blast this morning, dude.
Agreed. You are a tremendous human being, and
I appreciate it.
it's really great to be in your orbit as well. I respect, humbled, and thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode of As the Leader Grows podcast. We have got some phenomenal guests coming up. I've got my good friend Jen Gottlieb coming up this next week. Dave Horsager, New York Times best-selling author on trust. My buddy Brian Hall from Cincinnati, who runs the Dream Center there, and on and on and on and on are the guests we've got coming for you the rest of August and into September. So as always, guys, listen, if this podcast has helped you or blessed you in any way, two things. Number one, leave us a 5-star review, subscribe. And then the last thing, it'd actually be 3 steps. The third thing would be snap a screenshot, post it on Instagram, copy my guy at Knopf Knows, copy me. I will replay that, repost that, put it on my story, whatever you want to call it. Give you a little love and hopefully get you a little followers. But Brett, thanks so much for joining us, guys. Thanks for joining us on As the Leader Grows. We'll see you on the next episode.
Have a great day.